Hello everybody and welcome back. Today in the workshop we've got the Japanese black pine. A little bit of background on this tree. You've seen it on a couple of my benches videos. It's been sitting out there, I haven't really said much about it. Just shown it a few times. It was grown in the ground for 15 years. It was dug up, trained in a pot for 5 years, and then put back in the ground again. And that's why we've got these nice lower branches on the tree and these other ones up here that you can kind of see were kind of designed as a secondary leader intentionally with the notion of cutting the top off eventually. Now when I got this tree 2 years ago now, this is its second growing season in this pot. It was, 15 feet tall, like a lot of them that I get from the fields. So what I went ahead and I did a trunk chop to reduce the height, and I kept as much of the foliage and as much of the root system as I could to help expedite the recovery process. I also, if you notice, put guy wires on the tree. I put 3 of them, and what I did is I put them at the very top above where the foliage is that I wanted to keep, kind of at the cut site. Now what is great about this tree is now I can go ahead and remove these. Sorry, I have 4 guy wires. Once we cut these and remove them, the tree has completely established itself in the pot. And that's through a rigorous feeding regimen that I did. And I kind of timed it. So what I mean by timing it is, I went ahead and let this thing push out its extension growth, its candling, and I let those candles open up completely, and I cut them all the way back and just left a little teeny bit of a nub, maybe 1/8 of an inch or less. What that does is it promotes back budding. It promotes back budding at that bud site. It also promotes back budding deeper down into the branch of the tree sometimes. I did get a little bit of both of those. I let that completely harden off. That's this year's growth. Then I started fertilizing the heck out of it, and I fertilized it with a lower nitrogen, higher phosphate, and higher potassium for root growth because I wanted the roots to really develop and establish themselves. So that's what we did last year. This year, we've left it completely alone, and it has flushed out its second growth, or its first growth this year, of buds. Those have opened up and hardened off, and that's where we are today. This is the second week of June. Okay, and what we're doing today, matter of fact, it's Father's Day, so happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there that are watching this video. It's going to be a little bit later than Father's Day when I get to post this video, but I just wanted to say that. So, what we're actually going to do today is, number one, we're going to go ahead and do a bud cut again, just like we did last year, to promote that back budding, and to also promote, if you've noticed, this is a second bud shoot from last year. You see how much more tight and compact the foliage is in that? We want to get all the foliage to that eventually. So we're going to continue to do that, but today we're also going to do something kind of special as well. What I initially planned on doing with this tree, and I was hoping I could get in to get it done, but unfortunately it didn't work out, is Bjorn, who also has a YouTube channel I'm sure all of you are aware of, was in North Carolina. I tried to get in, but it was already a sold out event, so I wasn't able to. I have a couple other pine trees out there. I may end up trying to do one of those maybe next year with him, but this one here is for you and I. So let's go ahead and get started with this thing. And again, we're using Bonsai Vision tools. So far, now that I've had these Bonsai Vision tools for almost a year, I can honestly say these are great tools and the people stand behind their product. I've broken a couple tools of no fault of my own. You've seen the videos where they've happened. All I've ever had to do is send an email with a photograph of the damaged tool. 3 days later, I got a brand new replacement. If they're going to provide that kind of customer service to me, they're going to provide that kind of customer service to you, and they're standing behind their product. So I'm glad that I made the decision to get these tools. Not saying that you have to, it was just something I wanted to do for myself. So the first thing I want to talk about on this tree is we've got a ton of branches all over this thing, that some of them we don't really need. This is the projected front that I see for the tree. It's got a really nice movement, it's got some wiggle, it's got a really nice taper, but we got a fundamental flaw right here. This branch was grown as a sacrificial branch, and I'm going to show you why. If we spin it around here to the back, at one point in time, there was a branch right here, and it was cut off. And to prevent this from dying back, this branch was grown to help kind of compartmentalize and seal this wound. This wound is healed and is, there's some exposed deadwood here that we're going to have to put some lime sulfur on and address, but it did help compartmentalize and help keep this tree continuing to grow in the correct direction. So we're going to have to remove this today. And so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and use a combination of a saw and some cutters. So bear with me here while I get that. Okay, well, I guess I don't have my saw, so what the heck. Left my saw out there at the nursery, I think. So, what the heck. Pine Bonsai Vision cutter. We're just going to have to creep up on this thing, do a couple cuts. It's a lot of foliage and a lot of density here, but it's not going to be for the final design of the tree. So we're going to go ahead and get it out of our way so we can focus on what we're keeping for the final design of this tree. If you notice, I'm cutting from the bottom to the top, and the reason I do that is because one of two things. Number one, I don't want it to go from the top to the bottom and have this rip all the way down the bark. And number two, well, apparently Bonsai Vision has got kind of an issue with these concave cutters, because again, here we've got another broken one. So, broken the same exact place. There's a weak spot in these things. So, we'll have to send another email for a replacement on this one. But we got rid of that. With that gone, hopefully you can kind of see a little bit more of the design of this tree. It does leave a massive open spot here, but that's okay, because this branch up here we're going to bring down and occupy this area. That's why it's here. That's why it's still there. I think that's going to be my best bet. Or we have this back here in the back that's on the back side of this main branch that we can bring down and over, kind of fill that void in with all this. We're not going to actually do the styling of this tree today. Again, like I said, we're going to do some selective cutting, and we're going to be doing after we do our selective cutting, meaning we're going to remove everything we're not going to keep for the final design, we're going to go ahead and do our trim back of all the buds. So I'm just going to come in here and start whittling away at this. Much better. I want to keep this branch here. It's just got this little bit. There's a large scar spot right here, and all it is this little bit. But I think it's going to be an important part of the tree, so I don't want to get rid of it. But I am going to need to do a little work to it. It's got this piece here, and I kind of need to bring back in. There we go. Back to there, so we can go ahead and allow it to heal. It's already starting to sap out, which is okay. This back lower portion of this tree is very long and langy. I don't know if I want, or how I want to style this thing overall, full and final. I kind of like that whole bottom section because it's it slopes downward. It's all the same branch on the back though. It's actually 3 branches here on the back. And I don't know that all 3 of them are going to be necessary for the final design of the tree. I know I'm going to need to keep a portion of it at least, because if I cut all it off, I'm going to have nothing down there. There's 2 of the branches have a lot of back budding on them, and one of them has really, the center one here, it goes out for 6-8 inches before it actually starts to branch off. So I think what I'm going to do, and right above it, it's got a back bud that's come out. So I think I'm going to remove that. This is kind of the same way, although we got a couple small buds and a couple buds here. So we'll take that off. We've got this here that's got some buds. So I think we're good there. What we got going on here? Got a long langy piece and some more back budding beyond it. So let's take that off. And what I'm basically doing is what you would normally do to any other kind of tree, really. Is I'm cutting back to buds back farther down inside of the tree to keep that compact growth. Like this here, this is way too far out for the final design. If you look at the tree now, you know, this is way too far out here. So we're going to cut back into a good area where there's a lot of budding, which is right there. We're just going to keep on going around the entire tree to kind of do the whole that same thing everywhere. Anything growing over top of itself or anything growing out of place like that, we're going to of course go in and take care of as well. Okay, I think that's pretty good as far as doing any main cutting back of branches this year. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to work on getting all the buds cut back. And basically what we're doing here is we're cutting this year's growth candle extension that has hardened off. And I'll show you one here. This is this year's bud. It candled out and it has grown out, and when the tips of these things get sharp, that means that it's hardened itself off. If you cut these back and leave just about that much, it'll back bud onto that. So we're going to go around and do that to the entire tree now. It's called decandling is what it's commonly referred to as. And I'm coming back here to some of these areas, and there's these strong ones, and there's a couple little weak ones. I think what I'm going to end up doing is cutting the strong ones back and leaving the weak ones, because the weak ones only have 1 or 2 needles. So if it doesn't back bud, we've got a couple weak ones back there that'll take care of keeping that part of the tree healthy and alive. So it's just a matter of going through the entire tree. I'm not going to sit here and do this whole tree on film because it would be kind of boring for you guys to sit here and watch me do this. It'd be about as fun as watching paint dry, to be honest with you. But I'm going to go ahead and go through the entire tree and do this decandling, and then we'll come back and take a look at it after that. So stay tuned. Okay, we're back. So what I actually did is I went a little bit farther than I anticipated in the initial, but I'm going to tell you what I did so you can understand why. Last year I did the same decandling technique to this tree, and I did get some back budding in some areas way farther back. I'm talking 6 inches back down the trunk. Dormant buds popped. They're very weak buds, but they're there nonetheless. And so instead of having 6 inches of nothing, I'd rather cut that 6 inches back off to those 2 weak buds. So I went ahead also and cut back any extra long growth that's on the tree currently back to those weaker buds. It is the second week of June here. It does not get cold in South Carolina until late December, early January. So I've still got 6 months of growth for this tree before it starts calming down and going into a dormancy phase. So I've got tons of sun to put this baby in, and I've got tons and tons of growing season left. It's nice and warm. It's summer. I'm going to just let this thing explode with growth again this year. Once it back buds again this year, I'm going to have to selectively keep the buds that I want to keep so I can continue on with the branch structure. But I took probably 50% of the foliage off of this tree. But again, the reason being is, like for instance, this right here was clear out to here, and there was nothing in between. I've got these weaker buds down here that, yeah, they may be smaller, and this one's a little bit stronger bud, but these buds ultimately are going to be the next extension growth portion of this tree. Again, I don't have anything from here to here, but I've got some smaller ones back here. So eventually this will go all the way back to these. So I'm kind of planning for the future, and at the same time trying to compact the tree as much as possible. So what I see for this tree, I see this out here I left intentionally long because I see bringing this down and creating a branch here with this in the area where this one was cut. Okay, I see probably taking the majority of this foliage over here and bringing it around to be this portion in the back portion of the tree. So number one branch is going to be on this side, on the outside bend. Okay, this up here is going to be like number 2 branch. This will be number 3 branch and back branch, because I've got all this back here to decipher what I want to use for my back branch. I may cut it clear back to these right here. That's probably going to be back branch right there, but all this is on here just now for options. And then what I'm going to do more than likely is remove this branch here in the front. Okay, probably remove this branch. And as you can see, my back branch and bottom branch here continues up to here and up to here, which eventually this is going to be the apex. And if I can compact this enough, this will be this branch sitting over here. So I'm happy with the tree. What I may do, I'm going to wait 1 more year for this to do its compartmentalization and dying back before I strip the bark off of it, because it's still live up here, believe it or not. I may even get a little bud. I doubt it, but even if I was to get a little bud to burst up in here, that'd be awesome, because then I'd have another option for an apex, but I don't see it happening. The bark's too thick and it's too old. Tree's got a nice nabari on it as well, and I love the movement. Like I said, I see the front somewhere in this realm as you see it now. Probably somewhere between here and there as the front. I don't know. If I do this as the front, I could always keep that as the number 1 branch, and this would be the first back branch. And then I can still pull that down and over here above this one. That'd be kind of unbalanced to have both of these on the same plane though. But I'm leaving myself plenty of options. I may look at this thing next year and have a completely different idea of what I want to do as far as the design goes of the tree. So I've eliminated a whole lot of foliage on the top of this tree, which means I've eliminated a whole lot of shade to these weaker inside buds. So what's going to happen is now the sun's going to get to those buds, the wind's going to get to those buds, the oxygen's going to get to them, and they're going to become the dominant buds. All the dominant buds that I've cut off of this tree, the energy is still flowing through this tree, trying to grow, grow, grow. So now all those dominant buds are going to be, all the energy that was being put into these other buds that were currently the dominant buds are now going to be put into these weaker buds, and they're going to become the dominant buds, and then they're going to start growing. And they're closer back to on the branches and on the tertiary trunks and on the main branches of the tree. So now those ones are the ones that we wanted to focus on anyway. So I'm going to continue to water this. I'm not going to fertilize this tree again until the second flush of buds comes and those buds set. So that'll probably be August, September, maybe even October. And then when that happens, I'm going to hit it with a low nitrogen, medium phosphorus and potassium, so that way that energy is for feeding the roots, and that's going to create all that root base, which of course the more root mass we have, the more energy we can push into the branches and the needles of this tree. So we'll do a quick 360 on this one. I'm going to get it back out on the benches, get it watered in real good. I'm actually going to move locations of this tree. Where it was for the first 2 years was in a location where it was mild sun, not real hardcore direct sun. I'm going to move it to the other side of the bench where the other tree was that's a year older than this one. So this one's going to get more morning sun, less afternoon sun. Then again, I may just put it back to where it was. I don't know. We'll see what happens. I'm going to play around with where this thing is as far as positioning on the bench so I can get maximum sun exposure and maximum airflow and everything to help what's left on the tree recover and regenerate and start invigorating. So I'm really excited about this tree. I had a kind of a feeling that the majority of what I've done today would have been done at that workshop. I may possibly just wait until next year and make sure I get a seat in with Bjorn and style it with him. If that's something you guys are interested in, please leave a comment below and let me know what you think. I've got the another black pine just like this one. It's, well, not just like this one, but it's another black pine, and I've also got that red pine out there. And that red pine is really the one I'm struggling on because it's kind of hard to get back budding on those trees. So I'm thinking about maybe styling this one with you guys and doing the red pine with Bjorn next year. So I'd like to hear from your comments. I want to thank you guys for watching. I want to thank you for your comments, and we'll see you on the next one.